Legislator McCoy, Legislator Frazier, and Legislator Hasman, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
We can't. What's that? You can hear them? You heard them? Where do we turn it up over here? Legislator Hasman, can you just say that we can hear you again?
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The August 13th, 2024 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart is present. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy.
Here.
Ms. Bartholomew McCoy is present. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines is present. Mr. Blankley. Mr. Blankley is present. Ms. Bonnick. Ms. Bonnick is present. Mr. Brew. Mr. Brew is present. Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess is present. Mr. Chardy. Mr. Chardy is present. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby is present. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz is present. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman is present. Mrs. DeFlorio. Mrs. DeFlorio is present. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer is present. Mr. Frazier.
Here.
Mr. Frazier is present. Ms. Hasman.
Here.
Ms. Hasman is present. Ms. Hugh Smith. Ms. Hugh Smith is present. Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns is present. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller is present. Mr. Long. Mr. Long is present. Mr. Mafucci. Mr. Mafucci is present. Mr. McCabe. Mr. McCabe is present. Ms. McIntyre. Ms. McIntyre is present. Mr. Milne. Mr. Milne is present. Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris is present. President Roman.
Here.
President Roman is present. Mr. Sinclair. Mr. Sinclair is present. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith is present. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons is present. And Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson is present.
Thank you. Please stay seated. I'd like to introduce Father Kevin McKenna of St. Theodore's Church, who has been invited by Legislator McIntyre to lead us in a moment of prayer.
I'm grateful for this opportunity to represent our parish community, St. Theodore's in Gates, New York, as we continue to celebrate 100 years of service to that community. We are most grateful for all that God has helped us to accomplish and providing us with faithful guidance and hope. We look to our future with great confidence, with assurance strengthened by His provident care for 100 years over us. We've had many events in our parish these past several months to mark this occasion, and we look forward to several more. We would be honored by your presence with us, and if you're not able to join us for these opportunities, please mark your calendars for our 200th anniversary in 2124. All are welcome. Let us pray. Gracious God, as the Legislative Assembly comes before you tonight to discuss important matters, we ask for your guidance and your wisdom. You are the source of all knowledge and understanding. Therefore, they seek your direction in their decision-making process. In the Bible, we read, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." Help them to listen attentively to one another with open hearts and minds. May they not be quick to judge or criticize, but instead seek to understand different perspectives. We pray that you will give them the discernment to make the best decisions for the greater good, especially for the poor and for the homeless. We trust that you will guide them on this path and lead them to reach a consensus that reflects your will. May their words and actions be guided by your love and grace. As they discuss various topics and ideas, we pray that you will give them clarity of thought and understanding. Give them discernment to distinguish between good and bad, between truth and falsehood. In Psalm 32, you promise to instruct and teach in the way that you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you, says the Lord. We trust that your guidance will lead them to the best decisions, and we thank you for being a God who is always faithful to guide us. May your will be done in this meeting, and in your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father McKenna. I would like to present you with this certificate, Father McKenna, for being here, for your dedication to service. Thank you so much. And congratulations. Thank you very much. Thank you. Woo-hoo. Hey, can we all please stand as Legislator Smith will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, I ask that everyone remain standing. Without objection, we will take agenda item number 29 out of the regular agenda order.
Expressing regret of the Monroe County Legislature on the recent passing of Robert Bob Gregory Squire, father-in-law of Monroe County Legislator Dave Long. Be it resolved that the Monroe County Legislature hereby expresses its deepest sympathy at the recent passing of Robert Bob Gregory Squire, father-in-law of Monroe County Legislator Dave Long. And whereas Robert Bob Gregory Squire, father-in-law of Legislator Dave Long, was born on April 23rd, 1947, to Russell and Frances Squire in Toledo, Ohio, and passed away on August 4th, 2024, in Rochester. And whereas Bob graduated from Toledo's Bowser High School in 1965 and went on to earn his bachelor's and master's degrees in education from the University of Toledo, always having an immense enthusiasm for the Rockets' athletics and for seeing the Ohio State Buckeyes beat Michigan in anything. Whereas Bob was a longtime Sylvania, Ohio resident, where he dedicated 38 years of his life to working for General Motors before moving on to a second career at Sylvania Northview High School. And whereas Bob was a dedicated educator and coach at Northview High School, serving as a soccer and softball coach, additionally spending many years coaching youth and club sports in his community, impacting the lives of hundreds of children. Whereas he was also known for his love for books that was surpassed only by his love for his family, as he always claimed he was the luckiest guy in the world. And whereas Bob met his wife of 54 years, Sharon, in high school, raising their 3 children together and creating a family of love and support, which was his greatest joy and blessing. Their family also included their beloved dogs, who were some of the best friends Bob ever had. They lived a life together marked by every day and special occasions, graduations, Metro Park walks, dances at their children's weddings, and the births of their grandchildren. And whereas Bob was predeceased by his parents, Russell and Frances, and his brother, Stephen, he is survived by his brother, David and Mary, wife, Sharon, children, Ryan and Elizabeth Squire, Troy and Laura Squire, and Lindsay and David Long, as well as 6 grandchildren, Christian, Anna, Benjamin, Matthew, Aaron, and June, and so many more dear friends. And whereas Bob was a guiding light and a friend to every living thing and exemplified kindness and gratitude, he will be missed by all who knew him. Be it further resolved that the clerk of the legislature is hereby requested to forward a copy of this resolution to the bereaved family. This resolution was adopted unanimously with each legislator rising in his or her place for a moment of silence.
Thank you. Sorry for your loss. Okay, we'll move on to approval of journal. Your copies of date 8 July 9th, 2024 are available through Novus Agenda. Without exception, this journal will stand approved as submitted. Before we move on to presentation of positions and communications, I want to formally recognize former, did he leave? Former Gates legislator Bill Gillette, who was with us a few minutes ago. Just want to recognize his presence. Maybe he doesn't want to be in chambers as well, we will move. There he is. Legislator, welcome and thank you for your service. We'll now move on to presentation of petitions and communication. Legislators, the referrals submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle are available on Novus Agenda as well as online. There are several proclamations scheduled for this evening. Mr. Clerk.
Would members of the Susie and Jeff Fitch family, including Susie and Jeff Fitch, Scott Fitch and Kim Natoli Fitch, and Mandy and Scott Winsman, please come forward. Also, Majority Leader Michael Udelson, Legislators John Baines, Rick Milne, and President Yaversha Rome.
Right next to me. I need you right next to me. Coach, Kim, Scotty right up front, Colby. Mandy, we want to get you right up front. Hey, Victoria, we'll get you right up here. How about over here where we can see you? Okay. All right, Autumn. The Monroe County Legislature recognizes the Susie and Jeff Fitch family of Fairport. Whereas it is the sense of this legislature to honor and celebrate the people and organizations that make Monroe County a better place to live. And whereas attendant to such concern, this legislature is justly proud to honor the Susie and Jeff Fitch family for their commitment to our community's youth. And whereas Susie and Jeff met at East Texas State University in 1963, after achieving celebrated careers as high school basketball stars, Susie in Texas and Jeff at Middlesex Valley High School, now Marcus Whitman Central, they married on May 27, 1967. And whereas Susie taught primary grade students at Dudley School in Fairport from 1968 to 2000, and is fondly remembered by hundreds of former students. And whereas Jeff taught health and coached varsity golf and the Fairport boys basketball team at Fairport High School from 1968 to 2001, leading Fairport basketball to 12 Monroe County League titles and a Section 5 championship. And whereas Jeff was inducted into the New York State Basketball Hall of Fame in 2023, and whereas Susie and Jeff are the proud parents of Scott, raise your hand, and Mandy, who have continued the family tradition of excellence and public service. Whereas Scott Fitch also achieved excellence in basketball, ultimately being named the NCAA National Player of the Year at State University, New York at Geneseo. And whereas with the support of the entire Fitch family, Scott has coached the Fairport boys basketball team since his father's retirement. 56 consecutive seasons during which the Fitch family has been recognized by all knowledgeable fans and fellow professionals as a builder of fine young men. And whereas Scott Fitch has won 4 gold medals representing our country, the United States of America, at the highest levels of international basketball as a coach of USA Basketball. And whereas Scott and his wife, Kim Natoli Fitch, raise your hand, an orthopedic physician's assistant at URMC, are the proud parents of Autumn and Colby, who have continued the family, there's Autumn, where's Colby? Yeah. Continued the family tradition of excellence in the classroom and on the playing field. And whereas Mandy Fitch serves others as a psychotherapist at Rudoy Medical, and with her husband, Scott Winsman, has created jobs as an entrepreneur with A+ Cleaning and in their work in property management. And whereas Mandy and Scott Winsman are the proud parents of Victoria and Waylon, who have continued the family tradition on the playing field and in the classroom, with Victoria competing in gymnastics at the state tournament level, and also going to be competing at Geneseo this fall, and Waylon wrestling also at the state tournament level. And Scott Winsman was recognized as a top wrestling coach in our region for his work at Honeoye Falls Lima Central School District. And now, therefore, let it be known that we, Yaversha Roman, President, Michael Udelson, Majority Leader and former basketball official, John B. Baines, Legislator, District 11, Lystra Bartholomew McCoy, through the wonder of technology on the screen, and our good friend Rick Milne, Legislator, District 5. We hereby honor the Susie and Jeff Fitch family of Fairport on this 13th day of August, 2024.
We just want to say thank you for the opportunity to celebrate our parents as much as anything. They've impacted a lot of people's lives through teaching and coaching. But I think Manny and I feel like we are the luckiest winners because we get the life lessons every day. So we're very proud to celebrate them tonight, and thank you for giving us a reason to do that. So thank you so much.
I've got the prox here.
Would Sarah Taylor please come forward? Also, legislators William Burgess, Santos Cruz, and President Yaversha Roman.
The Monroe County Legislature recognizes Sarah I. Taylor, whereas it is the sense of this legislature to honor and celebrate the people and organizations that make Monroe County a better place to live. And whereas, attendant to such concern, these legislators are justly proud to honor Sarah I. Taylor for her commitment to trafficking awareness and prevention. And whereas Sarah Taylor was awarded her master's degree in Human Service Administration from St. John Fisher. She has completed several ministry and training courses, has worked towards many certificates in leadership development, and has trained extensively in conference and meeting planning. And whereas throughout her career, Sarah has advocated for vulnerable populations by working on boards alongside policymakers, philanthropists, and other concerned parties to improve economic and health outcomes. She works tirelessly to advance racial equity strategies and is the founder of the Upstate New York Women of Color Summit and BIPOC Peak. And whereas PEAK is a program that serves Black, Indigenous, and people of color parents and caregivers of children who are receiving mental health services. The program seeks to impact change in the behavioral health system and build programs that will better serve children and families. And whereas Sarah has received the Rochester Business Journal Woman of Excellence Award along with the Gloria Avis Legacy Award and was named an Athena International Award finalist. In 2021, the State Senator Summer Brook named Sarah her New York Woman of Distinction for the dedication shown to the BIPOC Peak Parent Mental Health Project. In 2022, she was named a healthcare hero by the Rochester Business Journal for her continued advocacy for mental health in communities of color. And whereas Sarah has been a well-respected leader in diversity, equity, and inclusion. She has a long esteemed career in nonprofit services and advocates that providers must give culturally responsive care and equitable services. Sarah is a pillar in our community and selflessly dedicated her life to equity and improving outcomes for the community's most vulnerable populations. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Iversha Roman, President, William Burgess, Legislator District 29, and Santos Cruz, Legislator District 21, do hereby honor Sarah Taylor on this 13th day of August, 2024.
Truly, this is a surprise. As a parent that's life changed, in 2019, when I left my executive leadership job, when my daughter went into crisis, I had no idea the level of shame and blame that comes with having a child in psychiatric crisis. But little did I know I was not alone, that there were thousands of individuals in our community that are often isolated and not receiving help, particularly those in high poverty census tracts. So this project was not birthed for me, but for the many children that are often criminalized, suspended at higher rates, and those that are afraid when they're in crisis. So I've dedicated not just my life, but empowering other families that have been through things that I've been through. So I'm humbled today. Thank you. What a surprise. I'm out here serving our community in a humble way. I did not want my life on this journey to be public, but I always say this is not about outcomes, it's not about the money, but it is about lives. So thank you.
Would Mike Levine please come forward? Also, Legislator Robert Colby and President Iversha Roman.
The Monroe County Legislature recognizes Spencerport Fire Department Exempts Association. Whereas since its inception 134 years ago in 1890, the Spencerport Fire Department, now the Spencerport Fire District, has diligently protected the village of Spencerport, town of Ogden, and the surrounding areas with the utmost degree of care throughout its rich history ingrained in the town of Ogden. And whereas the Spencerport Fire District is staffed entirely by the dedicated and knowledgeable roster of 110 volunteers from the Spencerport Volunteer Firemen's Association. Throughout each year, these volunteers respond to anywhere from 700 to over 1,000 calls for service within the town of Ogden, village of Spencerport, and South Parma. And whereas when the firefighters are not actively working fires, motor vehicle accidents, and other potentially dangerous situations in the town of Ogden, they assist our county's other fire districts, train and educate volunteers regularly, and hold community events within the village of Spencerport, notably the annual Spencerport Volunteer Firemen's Association Carnival. And whereas due to the ever-increasing needs of the Spencerport Fire District and its growing members throughout the years, the Spencerport Volunteer Firemen's Exempts Benevolent Association was formed in 1964 by members of the Fire District. The Exempts Benevolent Association functions by assisting and supporting the brave men and women of the Spencerport Volunteer Firemen's Association, promoting the health and well-being of the volunteers, their families, and local law enforcement and EMS. And now, therefore, we, Iversha Roman, President, and Robert J. Colby, County Legislator, District 20, do hereby express our deepest gratitude for the Spencerport Volunteer Firemen's Exempt Association on 60 years of service to the town of Ogden and the village of Spencerport.
Well, thank you. I didn't really know what to expect until about 5 minutes ago. And after hearing about the Fitch family, I'm going to go home and question my kids quite a bit. But on behalf of all of us, the Exempts Club is basically a support, recruitment, and retention for not only our fire department, but all fire departments. We have police officers that come into the club that really wanted to be firemen, but couldn't. So thank you very much. This is quite unexpected. We do appreciate it.
Now move on to presentation of formal committee reports. There are no formal committee reports scheduled for this evening. Therefore, we will now hold the public forum. Thank you to everyone who has signed up for the public forum. We ask that everyone maintain decorum during this public forum. As mentioned previously, we will not tolerate any disruptions during the meeting from the gallery. A second warning will be issued before a deputy will be asked to remove you from these chambers. We have several people registered to address the legislature. Mr. Clerk.
If you require assistance, a deputy is available to assist you in approaching the lectern. I will call 3 people forward at one time. Each speaker will have 2 minutes in which to address the legislature. Please do not bring up any signs or props with you. Do not single out any legislator individually, and please conclude when the buzzer sounds. And thank you for your cooperation. The first 3 speakers are Maggie Symington, Paul Furcella, and Alan Blair.
I'm the first one? Yes. All right. There are many hurting children who need help. I am writing this not just to say it, but that someone would listen and act. Children in Rochester are homeless and hungry. Children are suffering from cancer. I encourage people to give to St. Jude's Children's Cancer Center. I have their shirt on right now. Children across the U.S. are hungry. Children in the Middle and Far East and in Africa and Central America are hungry. Children are suffering with deformed mouths who need corrective surgery. Children coming to our southern borders are hungry and they need U.S. assistance. And they are not animals, as someone claimed months ago. They are hot, hungry, and homeless. Abused children need safety, and their abusers must be found and stopped. Penalties for child abuse must be much more severe. Childhood hunger, cleft lips, childhood homelessness, and child abuse all must stop now.
Thank you for the opportunity to address this legislative session. This body has a tradition of beginning sessions with a prayer or invocation. I am here today to request the discontinuance of this practice, either by eliminating it entirely or replacing it with a more benign moment of reflection. Short of that, I urge you to be more inclusive of non-Judeo-Christian representatives and to acknowledge that your tradition of having legislative representatives invite only ordained clergy who serve an established congregation is divisive and ignores and others your many constituents who are non-religious. Traditions are not cast in stone. Some evolve to better meet changing times. For example, in a nod to increase equality between the sexes, the old wedding tradition for the woman to promise to obey her future husband has been widely discontinued in this country. And while the tradition of bar mitzvah is over 7 centuries old, the tradition of bat mitzvah, giving equal treatment to Jewish girls, is barely 100 years old in America. Other traditions die, not always overnight, and not always without fits and starts. The tradition of denying the right of homosexuals to marry is an example. The 100-year-old tradition of seasonally changing clocks to observe daylight savings time is also being examined for potential discontinuance. Many of you might consider the opening prayer a harmless tradition, like pretending that a groundhog can predict the end of winter. However, prayers to a particular deity have the effect of excluding those of us who don't believe in that deity. Any prayer to a higher power leaves out all of us who don't believe in a higher power. It is within your power to decide that this tradition is outdated, and I urge you to discontinue it. If that is too big a leap, then at least adopt a non-discriminatory application process that is open to all. As Mahatma Gandhi advised, it is good to swim in the waters of tradition, but to sink in them is suicide. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alan Blair of Legislative District 23, speaking on behalf of Citizens Climate Lobby Rochester Chapter. I'm here for 2 reasons. First, I want to convey my organization's approval of the Monroe County Climate Action Plan Phase 2. True, we're less than fully happy with parts of the plan, including the absence of any regulatory component. A plan that is all carrots and no sticks better have pretty big carrots if it's going to achieve its goals. We at CCL will be following closely to make sure that the county's coming carbon pollution reduction incentives measure up. We're also fully aware that fossil fuel interests and their allies are going to try to sabotage this plan. We'll be watching carefully to see what happens next. Nevertheless, the plan's goals adhere reasonably closely to the excellent scoping plan the state is using as its climate action blueprint. We're rooting for it to succeed. Vote yes. Second, it's CCL's turn to tell you once again why we need a large-scale food waste composting facility in Monroe County. The state food donation and food scraps recycling law requires any business or institution generating more than 2 tons of food scraps per week to recycle them if there's a food waste recycler within 25 miles. The 16 qualifying entities in the county together generate over 2,000 tons of food scraps per year. Keeping it out of our landfills would both save on hauling costs and decrease county vehicle miles traveled, which is a goal of the Climate Action Plan. And that doesn't even take into account the decrease in waste resulting from family and small business organics recycling. Last, I want to point out that diverting organics from the waste stream is part of the sustainable materials management portion of the Climate Action Plan. Why are we delaying on this? This is low-hanging fruit, people. Just do it.
Our next 3 speakers are Daryl Odner, Shane Wiegand, and Amber Brown.
Should just start. Good evening. My name is Daryl Odner. I have been a resident of Monroe County for 35 years. I'm a husband, a father, and a grandfather. I am also on the local executive committee of the Sierra Club, an organization dedicated to promoting the responsible use of the Earth's resources and restoring the quality of the natural and human environment, among other goals. I come today representing the many Sierra Club members across the county and supporters. On their behalf, I want to urge the legislature to pass this Phase 2 Climate Action Plan before you. First, thank you for approving the Phase 1 plan. Phase 2 will provide guidance for responding to climate change outside of county operations to include all stakeholders in the business, institutional, and residential sectors, as you know. Both Phase 1 and 2 plans were prepared by many very capable professionals and with numerous opportunities for public input. Very transparent. The comprehensive climate action plan is science-based. The climate action plan is nominally about mitigating climate change, but it is really more than that. It is about helping our county and local communities move in a direction of sustainability. And in that sense, you can say it is about handing our children, grandchildren, and posterity beyond a healthier world. I hope you will think about the legacy we leave our children while voting this evening. Thank you for this opportunity.
Good. Oh, good evening. My name is Shane Wiegand. I've lived in Monroe County my entire life, and I currently reside in the Beechwood neighborhood. I also serve on the Board of Connected Communities, and I'm here to voice my strong support for Phase 2 of the Monroe County Community-Wide Climate Action Plan. And I want to specifically emphasize how important it is that I hope to see our legislators invest in this, support this, and staff this with dollars and the necessary people power to make it happen. Recently, I had my first child, a little girl named Maeve. She's 7 months old, and raising her in this community, it is daunting as a father to think about what it means if we don't act now and if we don't do what it's going to take to move this climate action plan forward and make it happen in our community. As someone else who cares deeply about equity and racial justice in our community, I love that this plan includes parts about land use and increasing density as a necessary part of climate. I think that's exactly spot on. And I think that tonight, this legislature that in 1939 voted to put whites-only deeds on hundreds of homes in the town of Gates and in the town of Irondequoit, we have the opportunity to take a step in a different direction with this plan tonight. So I thank you for including that. I thank you for your courage in bringing this up, and it's my hope that you all vote yes, and I want to thank you for what you all do.
When I graduated high school 30 years ago this past June and took all of my ambition to the SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry to learn how I could make a difference, I can't tell you how many people wished me well and told me that they were counting on my generation to fix the environmental mess that we had gotten ourselves into. This summer, I attended a graduation party for a friend's daughter who will be attending SUNY ESF in the fall and heard the same sentiments expressed to her. We can't keep pushing this issue off on the next generation. I'm asking you to please take the initiative, lead through inspiration, and make Monroe County a forerunner in sustainability and mindful planning. Thank you so much for dedicating a team of experts to spend the last 16 or so months developing a comprehensive and data-driven Phase 2 of the County Climate Action Plan. It was thoughtfully researched and compiled and addresses the areas where county residents can have the biggest impact on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. With the day-to-day running of the county, the legislature makes important decisions every meeting, but it isn't often that you are all faced with a vote that will so obviously cement your legacy for generations to come. This is an issue that is bigger than class, bigger than party, bigger even than country. Fighting against climate change will improve the lives of every citizen of Monroe County, urban, suburban, and rural, rich and poor, liberal and conservative. History will remember how you voted today. Please trust your experts and the science and understand the decision to vote yes tonight on the County Climate Action Plan Phase 2 will have an impact that outlasts anyone in this room tonight. Please vote to approve Phase 2. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Amy D'Amico, Barb Vankerkove, and Dr. Fred Johnson.
This legislative body will be voting on whether $6 million of ARPA funds should go to the suburbs only for youth and senior centers and refuse to let the city of Rochester share in that distribution. Nearly all homelessness in the county is experienced by people living in the city. 25% of homelessness in our county is experienced by youth in the city of Rochester. City nonprofits helping youth were recently defunded by the United Way, including the only housing program countywide for children. ARPA funds should be shared with programs like Center for Youth, Baden Street, and Community Place, all in the city of Rochester. Support is needed now more than ever. Moreover, Monroe County got a large ARPA award because it was designated as an urban center based on the poverty level throughout the county, including in the city of Rochester using CDBG calculations. That is because the federal government recognizes the city is where most of the need is. Sharing the suburbs only ARPA $6 million with the city of Rochester agencies will comport with and comply with the federal rationale for ARPA funds granted to Monroe County in the first place. I urge you to allow the city of Rochester to share the distribution of the ARPA funds. I also want to speak on the grants pass decision of the Supreme Court that now allows municipalities to fine and jail the act of sleeping outside when there is no shelter space available. I would welcome any legislator to work with me and other advocates to create a resolution protecting local houseless residents from fines or jail time for sleeping outside. I'll be leaving my contact information with the clerk of the legislature. Each of you is welcome to contact me to work on this resolution. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, members of the legislature, for this opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Barb Van Kerkhove. I'm a policy analyst at Empire Justice Center, and I'm a resident of the 24th Legislative District in Rochester. My comments here are just a few highlights from the memo my colleague Ruhi Maker and I sent each of you last Friday. I support the community-wide climate action plan, particularly the plan's strategies to encourage and incentivize higher density development, smaller lot sizes, multifamily housing, and mixed-use development. These strategies, while reducing greenhouse gas emissions, encourage diverse housing choices, support safe and affordable rental and increased home ownership, particularly for first-generation home buyers, help to reduce our racial home ownership and wealth gaps, support new and existing businesses, and increase the economic vitality of our community, preserve our green space and farmland, and increase the health and well-being of residents. So it does a lot. The multiple benefits of these housing development-related strategies are important because our community is facing a variety of challenges in addition to climate disruption. Some of these are incomes that have not kept up with rising costs, the higher costs of renting or owning a home, the racial wealth and home ownership gaps, housing production that has not kept up with demand, and our reduced ability to attract young families and workers to be employed by new and growing businesses. While the county can encourage, support, and incentivize municipalities to explore and implement these strategies, it cannot mandate land use regulations. Therefore, I urge each of you to support the development and land use strategies as proposed in this plan, encourage your municipalities to implement them, and vote yes on this plan. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Dr. Fred Johnson, the senior pastor of the First Genesis Baptist Church, as well as the president and CEO for the First Genesis Development Corporation. I am here to this legislative body, and I thank you a lot for allowing me to be here to speak on behalf of an absolutely ambitious plan for the Hudson Upper Falls area to build 22 single-family homes for ownership. This is a project that we've been working on for 7 years. It has broad support from the city council, as well as we are partnering with experienced developers, Rochester Management. Our construction firm is Atlas Construction. We have at the First Genesis Development Corporation, which is a separate 501c3 of the church. We have an experienced board of executives, management, those who have experience in management. And so we are well prepared to partner with Rochester Management to build these 22 single-family homes, 2-bedroom, 3-bedrooms, 4 bedrooms for first-time homeowners in an area that has been devalued, that has experienced disinvestment, and we're hoping to transform the community with this project, and we're hoping and praying and believing that this body of legislative that has the responsibility to make the decision today would support this project because it is a project that will transform the Hudson Upper Falls area. I know that we have support from many of you, and we're hoping and praying that you will be with us, because this project, and I'm going to end, I'm a preacher, so I may take a little longer than usual, but this project is shovel ready. It is ready to go. It is ready to move forward. We just need your support this evening, passing the vote to support the First Genesis Housing Development, funding for it, and we believe we will have a successful project that will transform this community. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Cody Donahue, Charles Johnson, and Mary Ellen Belding.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address the legislature. My name is Cody Donahue. I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy for Reconnect Rochester and a proud resident of the 19th Ward. Shout out to Legislator Bonik. Thank you. Whether by bus, by rail, on bike, or on foot, for the past 15 years, Reconnect Rochester has championed transportation choices that enable a more vibrant and equitable community. We are here today to express our strong support for the adoption of Monroe County's Phase 2 community-wide climate action plan. The plan's focus on reducing greenhouse gas emissions related to transportation, which currently stand at 41% of the county's emissions, is a major part of why we do this work at Reconnect. We believe that inspiring people to try the bus and try active transportation, leaving their car at home for just a few trips a week, and engaging in healthy and active lifestyles is good for the people of Monroe County, good for the planet, and good for our local economy. Study after study shows that building bikeable and walkable streets also leads more people to frequent local businesses and increases the property values in the area. The climate action plan goals are very attainable. First, we can reduce vehicle miles traveled. The average commute for a city resident is just 4 miles, which is a viable and attractive option for bike commuting if the network is safe. Other trips are typically shorter, and so they're good candidates for walking, biking, or using the bus. Second, we can increase connectivity. Last year, Monroe County adopted a county-wide active transportation plan. We can expand protected, high-comfort walking and biking facilities in a matter of years, not decades. And that is the kind of urgency with which we must be dealing with the climate crisis. Thank you.
How you guys doing? Okay, I'm just a simple landscaper, self-employed, and, well, let's start over. With the transportation, we had all that transportation before the government kind of took over and wanted everyone to have automobiles. So all that public transportation that we had it. Government took care of it. So now, in people voted to go against for the Clean Air, Clean Water Act, and the state came out banning in 2027 all of gas-powered mowers, blowers, and weed whackers. Now, that affects my business and everyone in our industry. So I don't know how many of you mow your own lawns or have someone else mow your lawns for you, but you're looking at probably an increase of at least 100%. The machines that we would have to buy, you're looking at like $150 for a typical cut. That's just to compensate for the equipment that we have to buy. Anyways, so I say vote no on this phase 2, and the reason why, July 10th, 1936, the temperature in Rochester was 102, and we did not have global warming, just to point that out. Okay, page 62 on your phase 2 thing, which I do have to give them credit. They did a wonderful job putting this together. I don't think we need to implement it, but we need to use it as a template and kind of use it to help restructure Rochester. But you have support shift in electric small equipment. Again, I just said they banned all that in 2027. So we can't buy it unless we go out of state. But anyways, so moving forward, page 32, you're talking about your emissions, your SF6, your CH4, your CO2, N2O. Is that for me?
Yeah, you gotta wrap up, sir.
Okay. Okay, then I'll make this really quick. SF6, which is polluting, the emissions, we use that for electricity industry. So by getting rid of that, because we want zero emissions, we need that for electricity so we can all have electricity. Batteries, electric vehicles, and smartphones. And sorry, I can't go any further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I want to bring to the attention of legislators a concern I have, hold very passionately as a victim and survivor of legal abuse in Monroe County. Using the judicial system as lawfare in any community, in state or the country, is devastating. Beyond the cost to the taxpayers, it's devastating to the people involved, the victims who are falsely accused. Most recently, last Friday's decisions regarding the very publicized case of the family here, the Nicosias, a business owner, a family man, and a philanthropist for this community for over 30 years, was finally decided. The claim against a local legislator, Barnhart, while disheartening, isn't surprising. The importance of the legislative community needs to know that the case that supported this, the Jones case, Gerard Jones, the judge found in favor of the Nicosias. What the judge found is the attorney, Make McMurray, had narrated a claim against the Nicosias that was totally false, completely false, and that has been publicized. Hopefully today it'll be in the DNC. As I said, it happened to me. I take it very personally. They ruined his business, they ruined his family, they ruined their lives. This was political media, and it has to stop. It has cost taxpayer money. I appreciate, thank you, Executive Bello, for not joining this and using taxpayer dollars to represent someone who jumped on the bandwagon to go after just a claim that had not been adjudicated yet. And I think that's something I would appreciate amongst yourselves and legislator, what you're going to comment on publicly. This went nationally. They've had their lives destroyed. I hope that you can imagine what it'd be like to have a group of your people 10 people on your patio and have it blow up for an enrichment of someone else and have your life and your business destroyed. Please consider it when you're making your comments about public.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Our next three speakers are Virginia Mayer, Natasha Besh Turner, and Abdul Bounds.
Hi, I'm here to ask you to vote yes on Phase 2 of the Climate Action Plan. That action plan reminds us that we are going to try to limit our emissions, reduce our emissions 80% by 2050. This is a big goal. It contains a list of strategies that the community can do, sometimes with help from the county government, which we look forward to reach that goal. And it was created with significant public and expert input. The science tells us that we need to cut fossil fuel emissions rapidly to avoid the most damaging effects. If you don't believe all of the world's major scientific organizations, I know that I won't convince you. But if you are concerned about climate change, or you're concerned that the climate crisis is real, but you are planning to vote no on this particular plan because you have concerns about particular bullet points in that plan, of the many dozens of bullet points in that plan, I just want to say this. I can't guarantee that you will like seeing more native plantings and less lawn. I can't guarantee that you will like giving up street parking for a bike lane. I can't guarantee that you will like seeing more energy and land-efficient housing options in your neighborhood. But I can guarantee that 20 or 50 years from now, the people who live here will love and appreciate that we did absolutely everything we could to protect them from rising seas, extreme heat waves, dangerous storms, crop failures, and species extinction. And I know that because I appreciate that we have clean air and water, because 50 years ago, our people passed the Clean Water and Clean Air Acts. I appreciate that we can see bald eagles in Rochester, because 50 years ago, people passed the Endangered Species Act and banned DDT. I appreciate that my kids are protected from skin cancer, because in 1987, the world agreed to ban ozone-depleting chemicals. So this is what our generation is asked to do. I'm asking you to be heroes for now and for the future and pass this plan. Thank you.
Pass the climate action plan. I'm not here to tell you that every day, every month, every year, we are breaking heat records. We all know that this is happening, and we all know that we have all contributed to make this happen. Instead, when the vote comes up today, I'm asking you all to remember that it was the legislators who came before you who put this at your feet. The time for deliberating the perfect plan where all stakeholders' opinions and needs are considered and any sacrifices are made whole has long passed. That time was back in the 90s when science was first coalescing around predictions. The time for taking small, measured actions that harvest the lowest hanging fruit, like recycling and composting, with plans to support bigger community-wide changes, like safe alternative transportation for everyone, has also long passed. That was back in the early 2000s when we were starting to measure and feel and see those predicted effects. The time for passing the climate action plan has long passed, and county legislators who have sat in your seats have chosen to give this to you. I am here speaking to you, suppressing my fear of public speaking, because I would never be able to look my kids in the eyes and say that my comfort, my convenience, my willingness or unwillingness to look at a neighbor's house that is no longer zoned a single-family home, that these things were worth more than their future, because we can't have both. Today, you choose. The legislators who came before you left this work on your table. Vote yes on today's climate action plan so that the legislators who will come after you, maybe your kids or nieces or nephews, maybe a student you taught, or maybe a young person who hasn't yet moved to Monroe County, so that those legislators can thank you for doing what was long overdue. Please pass Phase 2 of the Climate Action Plan today.
Good evening, legislators. My name is Abdul Bounds. I am a resident of the city of Rochester and a father and a taxpayer. I am here to support of the additional ARPA funds for the city, youth, and seniors. The city should not be excluded from this opportunity. One thing to be definitely kept in mind is that ARPA funds were awarded to cities and counties based on the formula that included the population. The city of Rochester is 1/3, is almost the third of the population of the whole county. To exclude the city is inhumane. There are systematic and public health and economic challenges that are unique to the city compared to the suburbs. The rate of poverty for youth in the city of Rochester is 4 times higher compared to the suburbs. If there is $6 million that is going to be voted on this evening, has basically promised to the suburbs, there is no reason to take any away from it. Instead, add those funds and total and allocate proportions to the city. Thank you and have a good night.
Our next 3 speakers are Tyrus Adams, Sheila Feliciano, and Matthew Gold.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sheila Feliciano, and I am here tonight to ask you to vote to add more funding for the youth and senior dollars to the proposal tonight. I sincerely think our seniors deserve the respect, care, and support for being the past foundation of what we are now. The youth is in crisis right now. They need the support to engage in positive and safe environment. And as a personal thought, when did we as a society forgot that the strongest foundation of the future is the children? I understand there's many other issues in the table, but that should be a priority, because that it will rely on the future generations, whatever is gonna hold together our society. Like I said, our kids are in crisis right now, and more so after United Way funds were cut. I am a mother, I'm a taxpayer, and I am a voter. I ask please to vote for more funding at the youth and senior programs. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matthew Gould. I'm a resident of Rochester, New York, and I'm here primarily to speak about homelessness. So in June, the Supreme Court issued the decision Grants Pass, the Oregon, where they overturned the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling that said you couldn't criminalize homelessness simply for want of a place to sleep. And at least in California, for example, Gavin Newsom has wasted no time cracking down. He's not only issued orders to the state to clear any state lands of all encampments, but he's starting to remove funds from cities and counties who don't take action to clear encampments on their land. I'm urging us to take a different track. Forcing people into shelters doesn't work. Criminalization doesn't work. You actually have to meet people where they are and offer them and recognize that we have very few shelter beds, and most of them are very high barrier, which makes it hard for people to actually live or exist in them. And consequently, we have a lot of people sleeping outside, and just throwing them in jail or fining them isn't a solution to that. So I urge everyone, I urge the legislature to work with homeless advocates such as Amy, for example, to come up with a better plan and also pass a resolution taking a firm stance against criminalizing the act of sleeping for want of shelter. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You guys need to give yourselves a round of applause. I'm here to say thank you to a lot of the legislators here that helped my sister with her issue. You found out that she really didn't know how to express her problems. And we need to correct a few things because we have too many layers of government between one branch to the other, where the right hand truly never knows what the left hand is doing until something dramatic that, like it happened to my sister, comes forward and grabs the community undivided attention the hardest way. We have to change our approach, our thinking, and like the lady says, the future belongs to these children, not us. I'm done, I'm through, I'm tired. I know you guys are tired of seeing me, but I speak the voice for the ones who cannot speak. And when I talk to you, it's the truth. It's not a lie. A lot of you don't want to pay attention to me. Till something dramatic happened. Rochester has to truly wake up. I love this city. I came back here only to find chaos, out of controlness. You had city government going crazy one way, county government going crazy another way. You ended up with a new mayor. You ended up with a new executive. I didn't mention no names. But the problem still exists. We got to do it right. My future depends on what my grandchildren is going to do. And if I can't retire unless you guys help get this thing right, I promise, and I told you, I'm willing to work with you. You think I'm joking, but I'm serious. But to the Madam Lady, thank you. To the Madam Lady, thank you. To the Madam Lady, wow. Everything I got to say is to the ladies. That is crazy. Gentlemen, follow their lead. They know what they're doing, because apparently they're going to outdo you. So understand, they got compassion and heart and love. Do it yourself.
Thank you.
Our next two public forum speakers are Terrence Schnurr and Kevin Lockhart.
The words Aaron Sorkin placed in Jeff Daniels' mouth were mistaken. This is the greatest country on earth because our conception of Republican democracy affirms uniquely that the cornerstone of freedom is the right to be wrong. The enumerated rights of the First Amendment are deeper and broader than comparable protections anywhere else. We who stand at this podium have the right to be obnoxiously, offensively, and appallingly wrong. Tyranny rarely begins with megalomaniacs, but with good and decent people like the 29 of you who convince themselves that they can exercise governmental power without legitimate authority. The constitutions each of you has sworn to support and defend must protect all of us, even Kevin Lockhart, or they protect none of us. I hope that in the future you will honor your oaths. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. With that being said,
Thank you. Boy, do I have a bone to pick with all of you today. So you thought you were going to take $144 million and distribute it to nonprofits, just a group of your cronies. And with the nonprofits, $144 million, these people are not elected. I consider every distribution of that cash an actual crime. Where are the elected officers? I agree, we shouldn't give the city of Rochester even $1 of any of our hard-earned money. But we got to give that money to the people nonetheless and find a way to prevent it from being intercepted by the city government, because no amount of money can solve the city government problem as we have it. And all of you here, we don't see, like, there's no one really for the city of Rochester here, advocating for the city of Rochester here. It's outrageous how few elected officers are in the wards system in the city of Rochester. The wards don't have elected officers. Have you noticed that there's 20,000 people in Maplewood in the 19th ward, and the only elected officers that they have are one person on city council downtown in the central administrative offices? Why didn't you address this problem in some way? You have the county board of elections on your side. People shouldn't have to come to the suburbs to fight for our seats. They should have seats of their own that they can elect advocates to and representatives to. It's been 200 years. This is a huge crisis. You shouldn't have to take that money and give it to nonprofits who are going to pilfer it out however you all do that, the whole nonprofit biz. And I'm going to wrap it up with a quote from somebody, a New York City detective who said, nonprofits are the miracle grow of government corruption. Come on, people, get it together. Let's establish elections. Let's do away with the ward system. We got to do something about this to give equal elections to the people of Rochester.
All right, thank you very
That was a long 2 minutes.
This concludes the public forum.
Okay, thank you. We will now proceed with the consideration of local laws. We will now, we are moving along. There should be no interruptions in the gallery. Thank you very much. We will now proceed with the consideration of local laws. Will the clerk please read the first item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 24-0262.LL, enact a local law amending Chapter 286 of the General Local Laws of Monroe County entitled Junior Deer Hunting Pilot Program.
Move it. Second.
Moved by Legislator Brew, seconded by Legislator Don Dorfer. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. We will now proceed with the consideration of motions, resolutions, and notices. Will the clerk read the next item on the agenda?
Madam President,
Yes, Legislator Udelson.
rest of the agenda as a whole, with the exception of items number 2, 4, 5, 26, 33, 35, 36, and 37.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Udelson, seconded by Legislator Brew. Yes.
Want me to read them? Everything is getting moved except for items 2, 3, 4, 5, 26, 33, 35, 36, 37.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Item carries. We will move the agenda as one with the exception of those numbers.
And we should be on item number 2, referral 24-0205, providing that resolution entitled Authorizing Additions to Monroe County Agricultural Districts be lifted from the table.
All right, moved by legislator Cruz, seconded by legislator Colby. This is to lift from the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 3, referral 24-0205, providing that resolution entitled authorizing additions to Monroe County agricultural districts be adopted.
Second.
Moved by legislator Burgess and Hugh Smith, seconded by
I heard somebody else.
Second.
Legislator Cruz.
legislator Cruz and sounded like Bartholomew McCoy.
Got it. And Legislator Mafucci.
And Mafucci. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 4, referral 24-0220, providing that resolution entitled approving Monroe Community College's 2024-2025 operating budget be lifted from the table.
Moved by legislator Bates, second by legislator Mafucci. This is to lift from the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 5, referral 24-0220, providing that resolution entitled approving Monroe Community College's 2024-2025 operating budget be adopted.
Moved by legislator Bain, seconded by legislator Mafucci. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item. That item carries. Next item.
Item number 26, referral 24-0253, adopting Monroe County Climate Action Plan Phase 2.
Moved by legislator Hugh Smith, seconded by legislator Botnick, Udelson, Mafucci, Baines, and Cruz, and Milne, and VP Vasquez Simmons. Thank you.
Just so I have that correct, I have the seconds as legislators Udelson, Baines, Bonick, Cruz, Milne, and Vasquez Simmons. Did I miss anybody? Legislator Mafucci, got you.
Any discussion? Legislator Milne.
Madam President, I rise to explain my vote. As a member of the Republican caucus and legislator representing District 5, I was asked to serve on the Climate Action Committee when elected to this position now almost 3 years ago. The formation of a Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee was presented to the legislature in February of 2020. It was then approved by the honorable legislative body in a 29-0 vote in March of 2020. In May of 2020, the Monroe County Legislature again, by a 29-0 vote in the affirmative, approved the members of the committee that would serve. Later that same year in September, and then on October, by the same unanimous votes, the same honorable body approved a simple but important resolution adopting a Climate Smart Communities resolution. That committee has served for almost 4 years with only minor changes, but for the most part, all the individuals serving have served for quite a long time, and I believe they should be commended as they have completed the task given. In September 2022, by a vote of 28-1, this honorable body passed Phase 1 of the Climate Action Plan as presented by the CAP Committee. Phase 2 is now presented. Phase 2 has been presented as a non-binding aspirational guideline that our villages, towns, businesses that so choose, and even residents can utilize to work to lower their greenhouse gas emissions, improve their climate action efforts, utilize in their own Climate Smart Communities program if they have one, and most importantly, utilize as a toolkit and suggestions of areas that they may follow, again, if they so choose. While I do not agree 100% with all the suggested areas of the Phase 2 document, I do agree that it is and could be a useful toolkit for our municipal partners, again, if they so choose. I tend to look at this phase from more of a municipal official's perspective in that I see the Climate Smart Communities process and full climate action plan for Monroe County as a document that can certainly be utilized for efforts to lower greenhouse gas emissions, improve local climate action programs, and more. But more importantly for me, I see this as a potential additional grant scoring tool to improve chances for the county and for our local municipalities to attain funding for projects. I represent an area of the county, like many of my fellow legislators, that have been farming communities for hundreds of years. I support those farmers and would indeed like to see the state of New York provide incentives to farmers to keep farming and to minimize the loss of fertile farmland to solar or any other. But that is not, in my opinion, what this vote is about. As a Monroe County legislator, I have reached out to the town supervisors that I represent. There were and are certainly concerns about the loss of zoning control, perceived cost of some of the programs suggested, and concern of any loss of home rule control. I respect that. And if there were any chance of loss of home rule control or zoning control, as a municipal official and as a county legislator, I would vote against this. However, because Phase 2 does not mandate actions by our towns, villages, business, or residents, and can be considered a useful tool for planning purposes for our local municipalities, I will vote yes for the presented Phase 2 Climate Action Plan presented tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Legislator Udelson.
Madam President, as it says in the executive summary of the plan, climate change is one of the most pressing issues of our time. When I started in the legislature 4 years ago, we started each meeting with the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance, as we still do. But then every meeting during the public forum, there would be a parade of students, many of them members of the Rochester Youth Climate Leaders, imploring the legislature to take action and to consider forming a Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. Moved by their advocacy and commitment, we did form that committee in bipartisan fashion, has been mentioned. I was pleased to co-chair the committee with Matt O'Connor. Thanks so much to Legislator Hugh Smith and Legislator Milne for their hard work on the committee, and actually every member of the committee that's been involved over the years, including several student members. I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize and thank the staff of the DES, led by Director Garland. They worked tirelessly on this plan and went to great lengths to make sure that there was input and multiple opportunities for input from the community. So what has changed from 2020 to 2024 regarding climate change? I would submit that we have only had more proof of its harmful effects and the need for collective community action. I've heard and understand concerns that this could be the first step towards more government regulation, but that is not what this plan represents. Quoting again from the summary, by adopting this plan, the county is not imposing regulatory authority over municipalities, businesses, or residents within its borders. Rather, the county hopes to foster collective action through inspiration and collaboration. Voluntary participation from all community stakeholders is encouraged to implement the CAP. I look forward to voting to adopt this plan and being part of the community's ongoing efforts to embrace its recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Legislator Domdorfer.
Thank you. I'd just like to start off by saying that I've reviewed Phase 2 pretty extensively, and my decision to where I came up with what was not an easy one to come at. I acknowledge that we must do everything we can to protect our environment for our future generations. We must also do everything we can to protect our taxpayers, neighbors, and small businesses. In all honesty, some of the recommendations in this plan force one against the other, and it doesn't have to be that way. Ultimately, my decision came down to two facts. This plan is presented as a whole, and this plan has nothing mandated or regulated. In regards to the first fact, if this plan was presented as individual recommendations, I would vote no on a number of items. I don't support removing local zoning laws. I don't support no-mow lawns. I don't support forcing people to utilize gray water, and I don't support a number of radical recommendations in this plan. My vote tonight is in no way, shape, or form to support any of them, and I can promise that if these items came before the legislature individually, I would vote no. However, the key point is that it is not all mandated and it's not all regulated, and I will have a chance in the future to vote against any of these items to protect our communities from these radical changes. With that in mind, though, and the future ability, I turn to what I do support: more sidewalks for our neighbors, more trees for our green spaces, and healthier water for our communities. These are common sense items that I'm hoping that nearly everybody can support. So I will be voting yes because of these common sense items, but but because I'm voting yes, it does not mean that I'm going to continue to support some of the extremer measures that are brought forward in some of these climate action plans. I respect my colleagues who vote no tonight for these reasons, and I respect my colleagues who will vote yes tonight for the same reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, legislator.
Thank you, Madam President.
Okay.
Phase 2 of the Climate Action Plan represents what we often see in government: grand promises followed by inevitable disappointment. This proposed plan, aims to reduce our carbon footprint and promote environmental sustainability through recommendations to our local municipalities, recommendations that come at a significant cost to our residents. While these are presented as suggestions, make no mistake, this is just the beginning. The Climate Action Plan and its supporters are poised to fundamentally alter the fabric of our communities. They favor multifamily residential units over single-family homes, disrupting well-established neighborhoods and undermining property values across the county. If actually implemented, this plan would place a heavy financial burden on our residents, pressuring them to adopt costly renewable energy systems, purchase expensive zero-emission vehicles, and even dictating how they manage their own lawns. Moreover, this proposal would stand to harm our small businesses, as it is typical with government programs. When funding is needed, it's the taxpayers, business owners, and residents who foot the bill. In a time of economic hardship, is it really wise to impose these costly suggestions on those already struggling in our community? And let's not be naive. What starts as a recommendation could quickly become a mandate. Small businesses, unlike large corporations, often lack the resources to comply with costly suggestions like retrofitting their buildings for renewable energy. The Climate Action Plan fails to address the significant economic impact these changes will have on our community. This proposal also poses serious challenges for the county and our local municipalities. The Climate Action Plan is nothing short of a logistical nightmare. Municipalities will be forced to overhaul their infrastructure to align with the ambitious goals of the Climate Action Plan. Proposed changes to our transportation network could increase traffic congestion, reduce safety, and diminish usable road space, all for the benefit of a small minority of cyclists in a region known for its harsh winters. The push for transition to zero-emission fleet would be particularly harmful to our county and school districts. For example, if mandates, school districts would be required to purchase new zero-emission electric school buses to transport students to and from school. These buses are far more expensive than traditional models, require costly charging infrastructure, and have a significantly shorter range. In our snowy climate, these buses could become a logistical nightmare for our district that need reliable transportation. And let's ask ourselves, when did it become the government's role to dictate what homeowners can do with their private property? Well, the Climate Action Plan is currently comprised of voluntary measures. We must ask, will these voluntary goals soon give way to mandatory regulations if they aren't met? Isn't it weird that there isn't a single price tag or cost consideration or estimate included in this proposal? For these reasons, I cannot support Phase 2 of the Climate Action Plan. It is not in the best interest of my constituents, our local towns and villages, our small businesses, and our county. These proposals may be well-intentioned, but are unrealistic and would spell disaster if ever actually implemented. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Legislator McIntyre.
I rise to explain my vote, especially because I am a Climate Smart Communities Coordinator, and I know and like so many of the people that put together this plan. I respect the fact that it is a bipartisan plan, so it represents not just one side of the aisle. This is not really a political discussion as much as it is a logistics discussion. I have a lot of experience living in an area of Italy that applied all of these different regulations, and it still did not cut down on emissions. While I do support strongly, very strongly, all of the initiatives for biking, I actually lived for almost 15 years of my life without even owning a car, So I think it is definitely something that is feasible and it's available to everyone to make our streets safer for bike riders and walkers. Certainly the things that are in here about increasing population density by creating more multifamily housing in residential areas is something that my residents have spoken out against quite strongly. They do it online constantly. Gates itself, the town that I live in, is becoming more and more an apartment-based living area. I myself live in an apartment. I myself live in the low-income housing that they're going to be putting in, but my residents are not a huge fan of adding more of this, and they have explained this to me very, very strongly. Ultimately, we vote how our residents would like us to vote, and I sent out 2,500 emails to get feedback on this, and I got about 200 between messages and emails, and they were all in the negative. One of my residents actually spoke tonight. What I will say about this plan is that while biking is wonderful and the idea of proposing alternate forms of fuels for our vehicles is fantastic, it does not look at what will happen if each and every one of us today were to give up our vehicles and push to an electric vehicle. What would we do with the waste created by those vehicles? We're not looking at things that we could do like turning the current existing models that we have into models that could use methane or propane, which is what we did in Italy, not just because of the climate and the fact that the situation was so bad in the town I lived in that while it was very beautiful, you actually had to, on certain days, not drive cars that had odds and evens in their license plates. And so everyone tried to reduce on emissions, and one of the things that we did was to adapt existing vehicles into propane and methane. That's just never explored in any of these plans. Another thing that is not explored in this plan that I find incredibly disappointing is encouraging people to shop locally. In Gates, we're starting a new farmers market that everybody's really excited about, but we should definitely be sustaining our own local agriculture and encouraging more people to shop locally. Think globally, shop locally should be something that we're talking a lot more about, and there's very, very little mention of this at all in this plan. So between some of the things, as my colleague legislator McCabe just brought up, a lot of the things that start out as recommendations, and while it's very clear that these are recommendations, the governor in 2023 tried to pass proposals to override local zoning. And the reason it was voted down is because colleagues on the other side of the aisle understood how absolutely unpopular that kind of proposal would be. This kind of plan could be used to show that we as a legislative body actually support changing local zoning laws. And I do not believe that it would actually save on emissions. If living in multifamily housing was the key to having cleaner air and cleaner water, Los Angeles and New York would be the cleanest places in the world. But we know that they're not. And even the little city in Italy that I lived in, Montebo, while it's beautiful to look at, it has wonderful hiking trails, you can't use the water, and the air is so bad that you can't drive your car into the city. Therefore, I would say that the idea of the hypothetical model of multifamily housing that's listed here as something that's going to reduce emissions doesn't actually, when it plays out, reduce emissions. Another issue with this is that we are looking over tonight, there is a plan to build more single-family housing in the city, 22 houses. That's a wonderful thing. But we recognize that people feel better when they're living in single-family houses when it comes to the Genesis program for tonight, and yet we're telling our people in the suburbs that no, it's so much better for the climate if you live in multifamily housing. Those two things contradict themselves. So we've got the space in America, we're blessed to have it, where we could be building more single-family housing and helping people to do that. And that is probably the way that we could get cleaner air in general, rather than all of this multifamily. It really does not live to a reduction in emissions, and I'm disappointed that no one else is speaking out about this. I personally invested about 4 years of my life into going to biofairs, encouraging sustainable tourism. My former partner, sold solar panels, and what we found with solar panels is that while they're a great idea, a lot of the time they don't pay themselves off energy-wise, and there's a footprint made in the creation of the panels in other countries like China that don't follow our regulations, that during the life of that panel are not actually paying off. So we don't even know if they're green. So instead of constantly proposing things that will just shift emissions to other places, we should look into suggesting more things like think globally but act locally, and making it easier for people to bike, ride, and walk, absolutely. But a lot of the things that would be necessary are not even examined in this plan because we're looking at the New York State plans. And the comptroller himself has said that the New York State plans don't actually reduce emissions. Well, they're not enough to reduce emissions at the moment, and they don't take into account the rising cost for our taxpayers, which we should be looking at. So I would, again, I am voting no on this. I know that that will disappoint a lot of people, but I appreciate the ability to speak on it before the vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other legislator? Yes, legislator.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today to explain my vote as well. I've examined the climate action report and reviewed all angles and considered possible benefits as well as the possible downsides. Climate action is important and crucial to safeguarding our environment in the future, but it also must be measured by protecting not only environment, but in protecting our economic stability, our property rights, and the way of life that our community holds dear. So when you examine the plan, you have to look at the main goal of the plan, reducing emissions by 80%. How can you do that with simple recommendations to the community? And when you look further into the plan and you realize that of that 80% reduction, 80% belongs to energy and transportation. Nothing in the plan talks about initiatives to help businesses create better vehicles, to have the students at RIT and the University of Rochester create new technologies so that we can better transportate ourselves to this community, so that we can have homes that are more efficient. There's no talk about initiatives for businesses or money to local government, from local government to businesses to create those types of benefits to our society. There are many parts of this proposal that are overreaching and they are disruptive. Yet my vote hinges on two things. First, this vote is a comprehensive plan. And second, actually, I'm sorry, three things. First, it's a comprehensive plan. Second, there's no mandate in this law. And third, I understand that having this type of climate action report will provide significant resources to this community, both from the federal government and the state government. Had this proposal been brought forward on an individual basis, I cannot support charging stations, no-mow lawns that diminish the livelihood of the individuals who've chosen to live in suburbs, reducing the amount of acreage or land use by individuals who have worked hard and strived to create a beautiful property and home. Having single-family zoning rights eliminated or removed to local municipalities. While I understand that the proposal doesn't call for such, the mere implication that that may happen concerns me greatly. However, I do support increased investment in public parks, implementing energy-efficient programs to buildings, local homes, expanding measures that help my community so that things like floods and severe weather do not harm the lakefront in Webster and Penfield. So while I will vote yes, it is a measured one. I support the reasonable construction of, I support the constructive elements of the plan. I will not support radical movements. I will not support in any way the reduction of municipalities' rights to zone and to govern on their own. However, I do believe that this action plan will both balance and provide for the community to have a reasonable and fair climate action community. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Legislator Baines. I'll get to you.
When you've lived 70-plus years, you've seen a few things, and the question before us is, how does change happen in our culture, in our country? Let me share a brief history lesson to explain my vote. When I was a senior in high school, I was mayor of East Rochester for a day, and we toured the Irondequoit Creek. And like most of the creeks in Monroe County, Irondequoit Creek had nuggets of fecal matter floating in it, sanitary products and contraceptive products floating in it. Now, here we are. That was 1970, when I was a senior in high school. What happened was the American people decided they'd had enough. And they said, we're going to take action by consensus. Nobody, it wasn't forced. Yeah, did we pass a bill? Yeah. And underneath this county, there's a very large tunnel built mainly by some West Virginia folk who settled here and created some great families. And that tunnel that's underneath this county is the reason that we have salmon in Irondequoit Creek today. I'll make it a little quicker here. When I was growing up, people smoked while they were teaching. I went to Aquinas and the teachers were smoking. The kids were smoking. Everybody was smoking. What happened? Did some, horde of government regulators come along? Nah. We decided as a country, we love our smokers. All you smokers out there, God bless you, but please don't do it near me. We heard that the draconian auto safety regulations I would like to tell you that when I was a kid, the 12 of us, the Baines family, we rode in a car with no seat belts. They didn't have seat belts. And now we heard that that was going to destroy our businesses, et cetera. But what happened? We as a community of people looked at the absolutely devastating statistics for deaths in automobile accidents. We took action. I don't fear the American people. I don't fear them. I think the American people have wisdom. One more quickie. When I was in high school, there were no women's sports in Monroe County. None. No interscholastic women's sports. We realized as a country, that's crazy. And collectively, we changed. And the reason why we should be voting for this is because it's advancing the discourse. And I want to thank the people. I'm not one of them. I didn't do any work. I'm just bloviating here for a few minutes now, but I didn't do any work on this thing. And I want to thank Majority Leader Udelson, Legislator Hugh Smith, Legislator Milne. I want to thank everybody for their comments. But this work is really educational. And the fact that there's no mandate in here is exactly because the people who are constructing these messages understand that the hearts and minds of the American people must change around fundamental issues for us to change as a people. So I won't give you any more history lessons. I think I had 4 chapters there. But if we're going to get there as a country, we need to do what we're doing tonight to advance the science, the thoughtfulness in a bipartisan way. And that's why I'm voting yes. Thank you, Madam President.
Perfect. Thank you, Legislator Baines. Legislator Brew.
Thank you, Madam President. I think I may be the last speaker tonight. As we consider Phase 2 of the Climate Action Plan, I recognize that some of my colleagues on this side of the aisle see merit in its goals and may choose to support it. I respect their perspectives, and I understand the desire to address climate issues. Each of us represent different districts and should and will vote based upon our unique communities. However, in my district and for my neighbors, I must express my concern about the practicality and potential consequences of the proposals within this current plan before us. First and foremost, while the recommendations in this plan are presented as voluntary, we must be vigilant about the possibility that these suggestions could eventually evolve into mandates. Today, we are told that these are just ideas for our communities to consider, but we have seen time and time again how voluntary guidelines can swiftly turn into regulations, leaving little room for choice for flexibility. Take, for example, the proposal to eliminate single-family zoning in favor of multifamily units. What starts as a recommendation to increase housing density could easily become a requirement, fundamentally removing our local zoning boards, altering our tight-knit neighborhoods, and most importantly, impacting property values. This isn't just about expanding housing options. It's about potentially forcing communities to accept changes they are not prepared for, changes that would undermine the stability and appeal to our suburban and rural areas. Another concerning suggestion is the push for no-mow lawns or low-mow landscaping. While this may be intended to promote environmental sustainability, it overlooks the practical realities of maintaining property in our region. The potential increase in pests, the aesthetic impact on our neighborhoods, and the imposition on homeowners' personal choices are all significant concerns. What happens if this voluntary initiative is later enforced through local ordinances? Will our residents be penalized for choosing to maintain their lawns as they see fit? The plan's encouragement of a rapid transition to zero-emission vehicles is another example of good intentions that may have unintended consequences. These vehicles are prohibitively expensive for many of our residents, and the necessary infrastructure, charging stations, maintenance facilities, and more are not in place yet. While some may support this transition, I worry that it could soon become a mandate, placing a heavy financial burden on those who can least afford it, particularly in our cold weather climate where electrical vehicle performance can be compromised. Furthermore, the recommendation to push for higher density development along public transit routes might sound like a smart urban planning strategy, but it risks overcrowding, increased traffic, and the degradation of our existing infrastructure. If these recommendations were to become requirements, how would our municipalities cope with the strain on services and resources? I understand and appreciate the passion behind these proposals. Many of us want to see a cleaner and more sustainable environment for the future generation, including this farmer. But the path laid out by the Phase 2 of the Climate Action Plan is fraught with challenges that could disproportionately affect our residents, small businesses, and local governments. While I respect the decision of those who will vote yes, I cannot support the plan that, though voluntary today, could lead to mandatory changes tomorrow, changes that could impose significant costs and restrictions on the people that we are here to serve. For those reasons, I must vote no on Phase 2 of the Climate Action Plan. We need solutions that balance environmental goals with the practical needs of our communities, and I believe this plan falls short of that balance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Legislator Houston.
Thank you, Madam President. I just would like to explain my vote. Thank you, County Executive Bello, for your leadership and for the assistance of your staff and colleagues provided to the Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. I want to especially thank the members of the committee who volunteered their time each month, and in some cases for nearly 4 years, to guide this plan's development. Our co-chairs, Legislator Udelson and former Pittsford Town Board member Matthew O'Connor, Legislator Rick Milne, former Legislator Delahanty, citizen members Kate Walker, Akila Bannister, and John Botello, and our students, Alden Smith, Anna Yato, Lola DeSantis, Lee Worley, Helen Frank, and Liam Smith. It has been a pleasure serving with all of you. The committee has been a model of bipartisan cooperation, and I'm proud of our work. I will vote yes because I believe we have a responsibility to leave a place better than we found it, a responsibility to care for one another, and a responsibility to tell the truth. The truth is there is no negotiating with the basic physics and chemistry of the atmosphere. The risks to humanity of climate destabilization are profound, and we are on the precipice of crossing tipping points that will collapse major Earth systems. The truth is this climate action plan is nothing more than a guide. It is not binding. There are no mandates. To many who understand the stakes, that's a failure. However, it's simply a fact that there are limits to the authority of county government. County government cannot force others to act, but county government can inspire, facilitate, collaborate, and fund. I will vote yes because the plan is an important piece to have in place. Every individual, organization, business, and municipality can look to this document for guidance on how they can contribute to the change we're all depending upon. I will vote yes in hope. Hope for truth to win over deception, hope for compassion to win over selfishness, hope for meaningful action to follow. I encourage all of my colleagues to do the same. I yield.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson votes yes. Mr. Brew. Mr. Brew votes no. Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart votes yes. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy.
Yes.
Ms. Bartholomew McCoy votes yes. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines votes yes. Mr. Blankley. Mr. Blankley votes yes. Ms. Bonnick. Ms. Bonnick votes yes. Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess votes yes. Mr. Chardy. Mr. Chardy votes yes. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby votes no. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz votes yes. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman votes yes. Mrs. DeFlorio. Mrs. DeFlorio votes no. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Mr. Frazier.
Yes.
Mr. Frazier votes yes. Ms. Hasman.
Yes.
Ms. Hasman votes yes. Ms. Hughes Smith. Ms. Hughes Smith votes yes. Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns votes yes. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller votes no. Mr. Long. Mr. Long votes yes. Mr. Mafucci. Mr. Mafucci votes yes. Mr. McCabe. Mr. McCabe votes no. Ms. McIntyre. Ms. McIntyre votes no. Mr. Milne. Mr. Milne votes yes. Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris votes no. Mr. Sinclair. Mr. Sinclair votes no. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith votes no. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons votes yes. President Roman.
Yes.
President Roman votes yes. 20-9, resolution passes. Item number 33, referral 24-0260, authorizing appropriation transfers, intermunicipal agreements, and grant contracts pursuant to the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA.
Moved by Legislator Bufucci, seconded by Blankley and Legislator Smith. Is there any discussion? Legislator Udelson.
Madam President, negotiations regarding ARPA funding have been going on for months. There was good faith discussions between the administration, the leaders of both caucuses, and the president. That's the way it should be done. There was no discussion or even mention of the city getting too much or more than its share. The city is the key to the success of our county, and I'm glad for every dollar that they received and deserve. Following on from the funds that were previously awarded, these funds are strategically distributed to produce a wide variety of benefits for all members of our community.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Legislator DeFlorio.
Thank you. Through the chair to the administration, I do have a few questions. Will this legislative body vote on any of the individual contracts that will need to be executed in the future, or does our vote tonight allow the county executive to negotiate and execute all necessary contracts?
Through the president, on the nonprofit grants would come back to the legislature if they are over $20,000.
Thank you. And just to clarify, through the president, that will be the only one that will come back through us?
Through the president, I believe that's correct.
Thank you. And through the chair to the, I'm sorry, through the president to the administration, how many nonprofits are there in the qualified census tracts?
Through you, Madam President, we don't know the exact number.
Thank you. Through the president to the administration, do we have any kind of an estimate? I'm just.
Through you, Madam President, a very rough estimate would be dozens, at least. I'm not sure. I'd be hesitant to give too detailed of an estimate on that.
Thank you. Next question. Through the president to the administration, the library proposal includes computer training with a goal of 1,050 individuals to be trained over the next 2 years. And within the proposal, it states that each participant will receive either the Chromebook or laptop used in the class will be theirs to keep. Are there any guidelines, did not seem to be in the proposal in terms of income limits or need for those laptops or Chromebooks?
Through you, Madam President. The plan right now is that the students who participate in the classes will be required to complete a certain number of classes and then be eligible to keep the computer that they use in those classes. Our plan right now is to use Chromebooks for basic and intermediate classes and use laptops for more complicated classes like coding.
So through the president, for clarification, though, there's no income testing or any kind of means testing or that. So I guess just to clarify, every single one of us in this room could take one of these classes and leave with a Chromebook.
Through the president, at this point, we have not established any income requirements for participating in the classes.
Thank you. I guess I would urge you to do so. And my last question is to the president, to the administration, will there be additional will any additional county staff positions need to be created to execute the items in this referral? And if yes, how many?
Through you, Madam President, no, there will not.
Okay, thank you. I would like to explain my vote, but we'll sit down and listen to the rest of the questions first.
Madam President, if we could have 1 second, I thought it was related to the library proposal. If you give me 1 second. Madam President, we'll have an answer in 1 moment.
Thank you.
Through the president, just to clarify, yeah, the only positions created are noted in the resolution. It's section 9 of the resolution, the 3 lead clinical instructor positions at MCH.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Legislator Barnhart.
Thank you, Madam President. Despite negotiations that occurred for months, we received this entire package only a couple weeks ago, And that's when most legislators and the public learned for the first time that a $6 million fund for youth and senior centers would only be available to suburban towns. The city of Rochester also runs recreation centers and should be allowed to participate. With that in mind, I'd like to offer an amendment that would increase the fund by $2 million so that suburban town allotments would not be substantially impacted. Staff is distributing a written copy of the amendment. I still have the floor. I'd like to continue. I've heard several reasons why the city should not be included. I'll go through them very quickly. First, that the package, if it changes, it will somehow impact its passage. I'm going to put it out there right now. I plan to vote yes. I'll explain my vote later, so that's not an issue. Second, that the city doesn't have senior centers. Well, neither do all of the towns. We aren't requiring the towns in this legislation to spend a certain percentage on youth or a certain percentage on seniors, and in fact, some towns are able to turn the money down if they don't want it. The city has all-purpose R centers that serve adults and children. They can easily meet the requirements of this legislation. Third, we are voting on $6 million to distribute to nonprofits in qualified census tracts, and that's been also given as a reason why the city shouldn't be added to this. Well, there's no requirement that the nonprofits that apply serve seniors and youth the way municipal centers would. And depending on how many apply, grants could be quite small, and not all parts of the city would benefit. And this is an example, this nonprofit fund, in the context of the Senior Youth Center Fund, this is an example of not treating the city and the suburbs the same. Finally, and the biggest thing that has been said is that the city has gotten enough or gotten a share already of American Rescue Plan Act dollars. I mean, this was said repeatedly at the Ways and Means meeting. Yes, it's true. The city got more money than the suburbs in ARPA, but President Biden and Congress allocated these dollars based on need. This is not a competition between the city and the suburbs. The city is not a foreign entity. It is not a taker of resources. And I don't know about you, but I look around this summer, the city has a lot of challenges. Our youth have a lot of challenges. The city of Rochester, the municipal government could benefit from these funds. And if they don't want them, they can turn them down, just as the suburbs have that right. We should treat the city the same. We shouldn't set different standards. We are one county. We should act that way. I welcome discussion and yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Amendment put forth by Legislator Barnhart, seconded by Legislator Vasquez Simmons. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Yes, Legislator Udelson.
I don't agree with the assessment or the comparison of the city. What I mean by that is ARPA regulations determine how the funds can be used, and this initiative is within those rules. Let's remember that ARPA funds were intended to help offset the harm caused by the pandemic, and that was obviously throughout the county. People who use the services provided by the Office of the Aging were adversely and seriously impacted by the unavailability of the senior centers. The harm was not just the loss of the chance to interact with their peers, although that's important. The senior centers provide numerous programs and services such as nutrition programs, assistance with housing issues, budgeting, taxes, the list goes on. One of the most important things that happens at these centers is the staff having the opportunity to check on the seniors each time they visit, keep an eye out for health concerns and other things. Never more important than during a pandemic. This could not happen during that time. I have a question, just a procedural question to the administration through you. If this amendment was successful, would it or could it have any impact on the other $6 million that's in the original referral through required adjustments to calculations per ARPA rules or anything like that?
Through you, Madam President, my understanding is that if we use the population formula, the city would receive more than the $2 million in this amendment. Therefore, it would affect what would happen in the other communities, what would be available to distribute.
Also through you, Madam President, not sure if you can answer this right now. I'm wondering what portion of this roughly $25 million, if approved as is, would benefit young people who reside within the limits, or if you, even if you, without a number, could describe the magnitude of
Through you, Madam President, you know, that's hard. That's a hard question to answer. Obviously, the not-for-profit money would be eligible to organizations that would serve youth. I guess one other point that I would add along those lines, if you look at previous distributions of what we've done through ARPA funds, we put together a quick estimate earlier this week that we've estimated that approximately $20 million have been spent to organizations that serve youth in the city, and that's an exclusive number for that. There's no overlap between that number and what's served in the suburbs. So we estimate there was about $20 million that have been allocated for youth programming and services, specifically in the city of Rochester.
to underscore that. So this $6 million, roughly 4% only of the total amount that's being allocated. I just want to reiterate that I am not against money, ample amounts of money going to benefit those most in need. And I hope that these agencies will take advantage of the application or the pot of money to make application for the not-for-profits. I do think that an amendment on the afternoon of the meeting, although I'm sure well-intended, not productive, because if we change one item, who could blame any party to the negotiations for then requesting their own changes? And therefore, I'll be voting against the amendment.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Legislator Vasquez-Simmons, and I think I saw some. Okay.
Yep, thank you. A June 2021 report by Gary Oldfield, co-director of a civil rights project, stated, "Racial segregation denies equal opportunity and creates a false path of inferior educational preparation that perpetuates inequality across generations. Segregation is a self-sustained system based on history of failure and a fear of change. It will not transform without serious and thoughtful goals and policies to make it happen. Residential segregation, especially between whites and blacks, is a durable feature of American urban landscape. Segregation of African Americans rose to nearly apartheid levels in many cities as early as 1940s, and a high level persists today in much of the county, including right here in Monroe County. Segregation is at the heart of racial disparities that Americans have long been aware of, including inequities in public education, health, and safety. This administration's practice of excluding the city and its funding decisions for children and seniors is both dangerous and unforgivable. Apartheid didn't work in South Africa, and it won't work here in Monroe County. As a lifelong resident of this city and a proud resident, citizens, I support the amendment to add $2 million to the suburb-only youth and senior funding that would allow the city to tap the funds without taking anything away from the suburbs. Which side are you on?
Thank you. Any other discussion on the amendment? Legislator Dondorfer.
Questions, maybe points of clarification for me. The city itself received $391 million between the school district and the city itself. There's been a lot of numbers that have been thrown out that are far beyond my grasp, but through you, Madam President, to the administration, how much money has the county allocated towards city-funded programs? Roughly, I don't need an exact number, Mr. Franklin, because I know you could probably pull it out.
Through you, Madam President, I believe this came up at Ways and Means. I think a real rough estimate of this, which would be a safe estimate, would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million. And, you know, if I could say one other thing about how we got here and how this all worked. We in part of our discussions, there was a need that was expressed by legislators, and that's how this program came together. And it's not like we went out and looked for this. This was something that happened as part of a discussion. And again, this is an effort to help with the effects of COVID in congregate settings of seniors and of young people. It was an eligible expense, and there was a need identified. And it's very similar to what happened with all of our distribution of the ARPA money. And you know, we didn't set out to say, hey, you know what, why don't we go look for $20 million in projects to help with youth in the city? That's when we put out our call for proposals and our call for action in terms of what we as a community wanted to do. This is what we received, and this is what we judged internally. This is what we scored, and this is what we brought back to this body. So it's not like there was a magic number that was, you know, I've seen people comment that this number was pulled out of the air. This number wasn't pulled out of the air. And you know, I saw comments that I made at Ways and Means were really distorted, and conclusions were drawn based on those comments that simply weren't true. This was something that was a collaborative discussion between the leadership of both caucuses and the administration. And again, this was a particular need that was addressed. It wasn't done as a slight to anybody. And again, just as I said, how all of the other dollars that were allocated were not intended to direct money to one community over another. And again, the rhetoric of we're one community, well, we agree with that. We are one community. And again, to look at one program, one situation, and to try to make hay out of this. So, you know, you're getting likes on social media, and you're getting TV interviews and radio interviews. You know, that might be great and that might be wonderful, but it's really not what we're here, and it really undermines, I think, the spirit of cooperation that really went into this between all of the parties that were involved in it.
Thank you. Discussion, yes, Legislator Barnhart. I'm sorry, were you done?
I could be done.
Okay. Legislator Barnhart.
Thank you, Madam President. We've done a great job to date in using ARPA in an equitable manner, and this discussion is seeming to go backward. It's really unfortunate, and it's also really unfortunate that I'm not sitting here accusing anyone of nefarious motives. I'm just trying to fix something that I see as a mistake. At Ways and Means, President, to the administration, at Ways and Means, administration said it did not call all of the towns. That implies there was no needs assessment that was done to indicate which, you know, what a number that was settled upon, the $6 million. I just want to affirm that there was no actual needs assessment done in which the suburban towns were all called, asked how they could use these funds, asked how much they could use. I just want to confirm that.
Through you, Madam President, the whole discussion at Ways and Means, which ironically, after that whole Ways and Means meeting happened, a couple hours before that, before you on social media accused one of your colleagues of being a puppet because she received a text, I looked over and Legislator Vasquez-Simmons was reading off of your computer screen, asking questions that you had written that were very hard to follow and understand what she was saying. My impression of what she had said was, did you call every town and ask them? And I thought, clearly my answer was, did we call every town? No, we did not. Somehow, the answer that we did not call every town then suddenly turns into, aha, they just pulled a number out of thin air, and this was all part of, and again, I do take exception because there absolutely have been, when basically you call everybody in this body corrupt and conflicted, and they're all gonna vote for this, and this is all gonna pass, I think that is nefarious. And to somehow say, well, I didn't say anything nefarious. Yes, you did. And you're casting aspersions on everybody in this body. And
Point of order, through the chair, Madam President, can you please ask the Deputy County Executive to answer the question about did we do a needs assessment?
Actually, Madam President, I believe I am answering the question. And to wrap up my answer to your question, I will say to you, did we call everybody? No, we didn't. But you know what? There are 29 members here. There was a discussion there. So when I answered the question that Legislator Vasquez-Simmons was reading off of your computer screen, it was very difficult to understand because I don't think she understood the question. And if there was any confusion, I apologize.
Yes, thank you.
I apologize.
Point of
Thank
order,
you.
I just have one more question, and you know, we can move on. I think the Deputy County Executive's behavior is frankly deplorable. You know, he's obviously obsessed with what I tweet on social media, that's fine, but right now, we're discussing this amendment.
Yes, can we discuss the amendment?
One final question here. And according to this legislation, it's not written here how the funds will be distributed. You verbally told us it's going to be based on population, but it's not written in the legislation, correct?
Is this on the amendment?
It is actually on the amendment because it goes to an argument against the fund.
Is that what your point of order is?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I would like to talk about the amendment. That's
Yes,
correct.
please, let's refocus. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
So through the chair to the administration, I just want to clarify that the administration has maximum flexibility in how to distribute these funds because not only is it not written in this clause about the municipal, town, and senior center funding, we also have another clause in the legislation that allows the county executive to move allocations around based on need. So there is flexibility here based on what municipalities would like to apply for, correct? You have that flexibility. It's not written in here.
I agree.
One of the arguments made was that the city would take away funds from the suburban allocations with this, if this amendment passes, that the city would get more than $2 million. I am trying to make the point here that the administration doesn't have to give the city more than $2 million if it doesn't want to, because it's not written in here.
I'm ruling on the point of order, and I do agree, right?
And
Legislator
the
Barnhart,
administration
can you?
answer my question about whether the city would be forced to give the city more than $2 million if this amendment passes? That is my question through the president to the
I
administration.
believe the question was already asked, but we will, great.
But I don't think it was answered.
I think it was 2 point, it was answered.
Right.
It was
But my question is, the amendment
yes.
and the legislation itself does not say and specify how much each municipality is required to get. It gives the administration flexibility on that point.
If you guys can answer that question, that'll be the last question.
That's
I
right.
think.
The resolution, through you, Madam President, The resolution sets a total amount of dollars to be allocated between the towns by various IMAs.
Right. Legislator Hugh Smith.
Madam President, through you to the administration, I'm sorry, but I'm just not understanding your answer. Could you please just clarify? Are you required to give any particular amount of dollars to any of the towns or villages that choose to apply for this funding?
The President.
$1 million extra for the city of Rochester, we're drifting off into other areas than the amendment.
I agree. Yes, Legislator DeFlorio.
I don't yield the floor.
Do you have another question in regards to the amendment?
No, if you're not going to answer my question, then I'll explain my vote.
Okay.
Thank you. I have,
Yeah, explaining your vote on the amendment. Yes, go ahead.
I have been impressed with the way Bring Back Monroe thoughtfully evaluated our community and awarded funding. However, any politics are beyond disheartening. Brighton, for example, has neither a youth center nor a senior center. And yes, there are needs even in the town of Brighton. Our food cupboard is empty. Have kids on free and reduced lunch. I am not sitting here demanding that their needs be met, that this ARPA funding is unfair. However, we committed to using an equity lens in the distribution of ARPA funds. This is a simple request, seeking to fund senior centers and youth centers where there are municipally run facilities. Why is it so hard to say, hey, those also exist in the city of Rochester? And if we look at where the need is greatest and where I hear over and over again people concerned about the youth in the city of Rochester, then why are we so afraid to say, hey, we have $2 million more we could make available? Nobody's being forced to take the money, simply would make it available. So I, for one, with the thought in mind for the least of these, will be voting in support of this amendment, and I certainly hope the rest of you will consider it.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the amendment? Yes, Legislator Vasquez-Simmons.
I hold the memorial card for Jaden Scott. Scott is a young man that's from my district. Been through the different departments within the county for over 10 years. On July 28th, Jaden Scott was murdered on the city streets. Folks, we failed Jaden Scott. I'm asking allocate $2 million to help the next Jaden Scott. We can't allow any more deaths on our streets. These young people are suffering. And Jeff, I understood every single word because I helped put those questions together, Jeff. I represent the poorest district in this county. How dare you minimize the value that I bring to this county and the fight that I have for my community? Jaden Scott will not die in vain. I yield the floor.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the amendment? Legislator Blankley.
Thank you, Madam President. And I appreciate all of my colleagues' passion and how important this issue feels to them. I actually have a technical question on the amendment itself. I see in Section 7 that the language has been amended to reflect $8 million instead of $6 million, and the city of Rochester has been added to a potential beneficiary of that. However, I do not see in Section 1 a transfer of funds that would support that language in Section 7. And so from that perspective, I guess a question to the maker of the motion, where are those funds intended to stem from?
Through you, Madam President, to Legislator Blankley, I asked the same question because we were given this information from the administration, which vetted the amendment. The answer received was with the omnibus transfers taking place in Section 1, there will be sufficient appropriations with ARPA Health and Welfare to accommodate the proposed additional $2 million in youth senior spending. Or to the administration for further explanation.
Very well, Madam President. So just to clarify my question, and I'll pose it to the administration, no change in the total value listed in Section 1 is required to support that amendment. No additional funds transfers are required?
That is correct, Madam President.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Legislator Cruz?
Some of the questions just got asked by our last legislator that spoke. Of the $25,400,000, $5,478 that are being allocated from, I'm assuming it's the ARPA funds, how much is left over, or is there any amount left over?
So we're talking about the amendment.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's to the,
Which is on the amendment. I wrote that amount off of the amendment.
the amendment is for $2 million.
So I am asking of the money that's being allocated, how much money is left over? I'm just reading that over from the amendment. Or are we going specifically from Section 7? So I guess that where the point where I'm seeking to gain clarity is, where is the $2 million being allocated from, transferred from, or?
Oh, that was just, yep, that question was just asked and answered.
Why I'm asking maybe for clarity, because I did not understand it, so for me, if there was any other way we could rephrase the answer.
To the maker of the motion, she rephrased.
Or the administration, whomever could.
Okay,
answer the
administration,
question.
as it was deferred earlier. Yep, same question. Just seeking further clarity.
Madam President, the Fund Center for ARPA Health and Welfare has sufficient appropriations to accommodate the additional $2 million requested in this amendment. I'm not without further clarification, I'm not sure how else to answer that question.
Understood, thank you. Any other additional questions? That looks like B2.
Correct. I would like to explain my vote. I dislike the way the politics has been put out by certain legislators and how this come to the floor after months of the administration taking its time to making sure that we have adequate monetary help and benefits throughout the county. So I thank Adam Bello, its administration, for all the work that they have done and put into making sure that this is something that we all agree on. And with that being said, I know that as a result, I can only but assume that he also has spoken with the city to make sure that the city has also gotten the resources that are needed to make sure that they could move forward. However, being the legislator of District 21, so closely to District 22, I too see the need, right, as it continues to rise and the drop in resources from other organizations in our community. And with that being said, I feel like I need to vote yes in order to properly represent my district.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion on the amendment? Legislator Baines, on the amendment.
I'd like to explain my vote on the amendment.
Thank you.
Legislatures with working majorities put together proposals and have the votes to pass them. Not have such a legislature. Result, we are required, in order to get work done, to form a coalition between the two caucuses. In order for that to function, the leadership of the caucuses have to be able to meet, frankly discuss, and negotiate. And when they negotiate, what they're doing, especially for a comprehensive proposal, which it's my understanding that this proposal is designed to end the ARPA question. Maybe a few straggling issues, but for the most part, this will be the last major ARPA legislation. Now, I put together hundreds of millions of dollars of teacher contracts in my long career as a union negotiator, and when you go in the room and you negotiate, everything's connected to everything else. And there are no amendments or changes, because that collapses the entire premise of a coalition. So I wasn't in the room, but my leaders were, and the leaders of the other caucus were in the room. They did not propose this referral as an a la carte. It is one thing, one proposal that represents, I'm certain, the negotiation. And out of respect for that process, I am absolutely voting no on the amendment, because if we can't have a working majority, which we don't seem to be able to have, we sure as heck better be able to have a coalition governance. And we can't have a coalition governance if our leaders can't get together and resolve issues. I'm voting no.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on the amendment? Legislator Bonnick.
Legislator, just use that microphone there.
I've listened intently to the discussions that have been had surrounding this amendment, and I'm going to support what my colleague, Legislator Baines, talked about. This amendment was thrown at us in the last minute, us nor thoughtful. I am yet to see a discussion around how we came up with $2 million allocation. Funding is to be administered based on the population formula that has been discussed. Then that means the city of Rochester is due. As Legislator Baines has pointed out, our leaders got together and they had a discussion around what's the best way to administer the remaining funds that is left behind. I am offended that folks in this room, others, to narrative that the city is being left behind. I am going to vote no on this. represent a district of folks that I truly respect, and I will not allow them to be used as pawns in some nefarious agenda by some of the legislators of this body. It was as simple as one legislator pointed out, as just colors, then there would not be this discussion. We are the majority caucus, and if we all work together as a unit and as one and as a team, there will be no need any type of discussion such as this. The maker of this motion does not respect our colleagues to sit in discussion about things that benefits our district. Agenda that needs to be pushed. So here we go. Out of respect for the folks in my district, I do know that resources need to be allocated to them. I am quite sure the discussion and the agreement that was had by the administration has factored that in. That being said, I will be voting no on this amendment.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll be voting on the amendment. We'll go roll call vote.
Roll call vote on the amendment. Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson votes no. Mr. Brew. Mr. Brew votes no. Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart votes yes. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy.
No.
Ms. Bartholomew McCoy votes no. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines votes no. Mr. Blankley. Mr. Blankley votes no. Ms. Bonnick. Ms. Bonnick votes no. Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess votes no. Mr. Chardy. Mr. Chardy votes no. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby votes no. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz votes yes. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman votes yes. Mrs. DeFlorio. Mrs. DeFlorio votes yes. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer votes no. Mr. Frazier.
No.
Mr. Frazier votes no. Ms. Hasman.
No.
Ms. Hasman votes no. Ms. Hughes Smith. Ms. Hughes Smith votes yes. Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns votes no. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller votes no. Mr. Long. Mr. Long votes no. Mr. Mafucci. Mr. Mafucci votes no. Mr. McCabe. Mr. McCabe votes no. Ms. McIntyre. Ms. McIntyre votes no. Mr. Milne. Mr. Milne votes no. Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris votes no. Mr. Sinclair. Mr. Sinclair votes no. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith votes no. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons votes yes. President Roman.
No.
President Roman votes no. 6 to 23. Amendment fails.
Okay, we are back to the original motion and piece of legislation. Any discussion on that? Yes, Legislator Smith. And then, thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today in strong support of this referral. When Monroe County first learned of the funding we receive under the American Rescue Plan Act, we immediately got to work. Our mission was clear: to ensure these funds would be distributed in ways that directly benefit our community. Through extensive community outreach and partnerships with our local towns, Republican legislators identified 5 key priorities for ARPA funding on August 3rd, 2021. Assisting small businesses, improving infrastructure, increasing broadband accessibility, bolstering tourism, and supporting public safety. Today, I'm proud to say we have delivered on these priorities. We have invested millions in grants and loans to small businesses, the backbone of our community. We have made substantial infrastructure improvements ranging from security enhancements to family reunification centers for mass crisis situations, launching a multi-million-dollar broadband infrastructure initiative. We have allocated significant funds to our local EMS and fire agencies, including a countywide EMS training initiative, grants for fire districts, ambulance services, and the expansion of the CNA, RN, and LPN training programs, which are all crucial in addressing the ongoing EMS crisis. And tonight with this package, we will do even more delivering for residents across the county from east side to west side. I was proud to vote yes on the first ARPA referral. where funds had gone into the city of Rochester through departments like Human Services, Department of Public Safety, Planning Department for initiatives like Bring Back Monroe, other focuses on mental health and economic development. To those who may question the allocation of these remaining funds to the suburban and rural districts, our seniors, our veterans, our kids, parents all deserve the support. Struggles and needs do not stop at our city limits. While I'm proud of what we have achieved to date, I'm especially proud of the additional victories we will deliver across the county tonight. Our towns will receive funding for seniors and recreation programs. I look forward to our children thriving these programs and our seniors enjoying new opportunities to explore and connect with their communities. Our veterans and seniors will finally have access to services centers close to home. We'll have them on the east side and the west side, bringing essential resources directly to them, leading to longer, more fulfilling lives. Our libraries will receive funding for internet devices, connecting residents, especially in the rural district like mine. We'll bring them to the 21st century. This will provide access for education, jobs, and so much more. I wholeheartedly support this package, and I want to thank the leadership on the other side of the aisle, the administration, for recognizing these needs as well. I urge everyone to join me in voting yes on this multifaceted proposal, which will bring so much real-world benefits to the entire county. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Legislator Morris.
Madam President, I also rise to explain my vote. Although I was not yet a county legislator when our county first received the $144 million in ARPA dollars, I am very proud to be here to support this tonight. The package before us is the result of a bipartisan compromise that addresses the remaining priorities that will have everyday, real-world, and positive impacts on the people we serve. Representing one of the largest towns in Monroe County, I often hear from our residents that while they certainly appreciate the need and support Monroe County provides to the city of Rochester, there is certainly need for many residents in our town, as well as towns and villages all throughout Monroe County. This effort tonight does much to help address that need. Tonight's package shows that it does not have to be a binary choice. We can serve the needs of our constituents while at the same time helping our colleagues, such as President Rahman to deliver for hers and Legislator Baines to deliver for his, and leaders Brew and Udelson for theirs, and so on and so forth. It is a win-win. I am proud of my Republican colleagues for fighting for over 3 years for the priorities that are near and dear to our constituents and delivering these funding opportunities tonight. I look forward to seeing the Veterans Service Center, hopefully in my hometown, possibly at the Grease Ridge Mall, serving our residents right in their backyards, expanding recreation programs for our neighborhoods, delivering new or enhanced services to our seniors, and first-time internet access available at home or the local library in those underserved areas. These are things that make a meaningful impact in people's day-to-day lives, and that is what government should be about. Not playing politics, not wasting tax dollars, and providing resources when needs are identified and the justification for those needs is obvious and sincere. This package is a very good thing, not just for the residents of my district, but also those all throughout Monroe County, and I proudly will be voting yes. I thank our leader, Steve Brew, and our leadership team, legislators Jackie Smith and Paul Dondorfer, and all those who help make these priorities a reality. On behalf of our residents, these are truly promises made and promises kept. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Legislator Barnhart.
Yes, I'd like to explain my vote. The administration has shown a notable lack of transparency and resistance to questions on the American Rescue Plan Act, but I'm pleased that things are at least moving in the right direction. I do encourage the administration to make the website where it's posting ARPA materials more prominent. I strongly support approximately half the spending in this package. The other half is problematic. A $6 million fund that deliberately excludes city youth and seniors and was negotiated without any needs analysis. A $6 million fund for nonprofits that doesn't aim to impact any particular problem and could end up with small grants, making its impact even smaller. These were dollars repurposed from the failed Neighborhood Collaborative Project. Those dollars should have been used for their intended purpose to impact poverty. A housing package with no protections for tenants that doesn't include the one thing study after study after study after study says is needed for success, and that one thing is rental subsidies. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but the deal was negotiated in the back room under the false pretense of a need for coalitions and votes and whatever. It's just ridiculous. And I resent this being presented as one up or down vote, an old trick to make sure the problematic stuff gets through. ARPA was treated like pork. But because of the good things in this package and additional time I've had to review it and speak to constituents, I'm changing my vote from Ways and Means and voting yes, and will continue to closely monitor the progress of the spending. And I encourage the administration to stay on course with providing information, and I hope it does so in a more constructive, timely, and positive manner than we've seen to date.
Any other discussion? Yes, Tracy DeFlorio.
Thank you.
Legislator.
Thank you. I rise to explain my vote as well. There are many good things in this $25 million spending package, and there are some items that are troubling. With limited time to investigate and limited details in many of the proposals, we are left to rely on assurances from the administration. We must trust that they have done their due diligence, asked the right questions, will provide the proper oversight, and will be transparent with the contracts when they are signed in the future. We must also rely on the administration to hear and address the concerns discussed tonight, and I urge them to do so. Because of the greater good in this referral, and despite my concerns, I will be voting yes tonight.
Any other discussion? No? Yes, Legislator John.
Yeah, Madam President, I just rise to explain my vote. First of all, I want to commend the Bello administration, Democrat and Republican leadership for getting together. There is no 2-to-1 majorities like they have down in Albany. You have to, as my legislator friend said, you have to work together. And this is something that maybe we don't like every single factor in there, but what it comes down to, are you really going to vote against libraries? You're going to vote against senior centers? Going to vote against youth programs? I'm not. I don't think anybody here is. But we got together, we cobbled together a deal, and now I think that everybody has something that they can vote for in this. And I just want to bring up one thing that really no one's bringing up yet, but that section that a gentleman that came up, I'm not sure what his name was, the pastor, about building new houses. That's a great idea. I represent Webster. I represent the east side of Monroe County. But building new houses in blighted areas is a great idea. And I got another idea. Why don't we actually start, not a better idea, okay? I got another idea. I don't want to one-up anybody, but look at, why don't we help the working poor? Everybody says, oh, I care about women and children. I love that, right? I love working men and women. Well, you know what? A lot of people are low income through no fault of their own. They're working at least 40 hours a week, but they're making beans, right? They can't do anything except for pay for food, clothing, and shelter. If we could help people out, not by building new houses, even less expensive, give them 20% down if they're low income, and allow them to buy a house in the city with 20% down and closing costs. Therefore, somebody will have a stake in the game. Instead of being a home renter, you're a home owner. And as we turn the clock around, I mean, in the city, 2/3 of the people are renters. What if 2/3 of the people that live in the city own their houses? Everybody talks about gentrification, and you know, middle and upper middle income people come in and buy up houses, fix them up. You know, the homes go up in value, they make money, the rents go up, people have to move out because they can't afford it. Why don't we give the working poor a stake in the game, right? Let's give them 20% down. It's a great idea because, as everybody in the real estate business knows, if you put at least 20% down or more, you don't pay PMI, you don't pay private mortgage insurance. That's going to save you another $200 a month. And if you have a 30-year mortgage on a house, an individual, single-family home that you own, you not only have the pride of home ownership, you have a mortgage that's never going up for the next 30 years. Not going to say that about rent. So instead of the rent going up, you have a single-family house that's going up. That's gentrification, revitalization of some of the worst areas of the city. But everybody that owns a property is going to care about their property, going to care about their lawns, going to care about the community. They're going to come out and vote. They're going to care about their schools because they have a stake. They have a claim. And it does everybody a lot of good if they are homeowners. You know, on a personal level, back in my younger days, I used to go down to Cobb's Hill and play basketball. And I'll tell you, back in those days, I was a specimen, you know. You wouldn't know it now, but, well, not, I know what Baines is thinking, you know, a specimen in a jar,
Can we stay
but not that,
focused,
you know.
please?
But look, okay, look at,
Focus, please.
no, I used to go down to play basketball down at Cobb's Hill.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Point of order.
don't want a point of order, but my point is.
It's coming.
Okay, hang on. I used to go down and play basketball.
Yes.
And,
Will you wrap up, John?
okay,
Yeah.
I remember.
I thought I saw you down there. Well, look I would play ball down there, and a lot of the guys were poor. A lot of the guys that came down were African American, there were minorities. And one of the phrases that I used to hear down there would people say, "Where do you stay? Where do you stay?" If you're out in the suburbs, people say, "Where do you live?" There's a permanency to where do you live. Where do you stay sounds like this year I'm here, next year I'm somewhere else. You don't have the same pride of home ownership. You don't have the same pride of the local schools and the local community. So I think I can come up with a lot of ways that we can save money, but without even raising taxes, if we help people with 20% down, we don't have to spend $250,000 on a new house. We can help people buy some of these blighted houses in the blighted areas, bring those areas back, and help them establish homes and families which will be better for them and the community.
Perfect, thank you for sharing. Okay.
I'm voting yes.
I was gonna say, yeah. It's like, I think you were gonna explain how you're gonna vote. One more.
Just clarify a few things that I think is troubling. When we've talked about these ARPA funds, we seem to think that in some way the suburban areas are rich and that everybody there doesn't have any need, and there's no reason that we need to give money to Webster and Penfield and Gates and Greece. And I think the reality of this body should be that those areas need money just as much as every area in this community. That there are people in those areas that can rely on these funds, that deserve these funds, and that these communities need these funds. So when I vote yes, I remember that these communities, the community that I represent, not to ignore the city, but also needs funding. And so that's why I'm voting yes.
Perfect, thank you. Any other discussion? With that being said, I just want to share my sentiments. I am extremely proud of the work that has been done in a collaborative manner to help move ARPA forward and this funding forward so that it can have a direct impact in the community sooner than later. I think some of the things that were shared today in regards to how influential this package is has gone unnoticed by the media, by individuals oftentimes only on one platform. I want to say I think many of us can be proud of the digital equity that's in this package, our landlord incentive program, municipal senior and youth programming, support to veterans, the complex care program, the important training for nurses at MCH, the construction of single-family households that was talked about today that will, in fact, impact that community in ways we can't even imagine. and the $6 million to support the nonprofit sector. As mentioned, I am extremely proud of the work that we have done. I want to thank leaders on both sides of the aisle who collaboratively decided that we needed to move forward because we know that the time is short. But we also know that these dollars need to get out into the community. So for that, I am in support of this package, and thank you all for the work, the questions, and the continued support of our community. So with that, sounds like roll call vote, maybe? No? All right, so we'll do a vote, Mr. Clerk. I'm sorry, yeah, I do that, you're right. I was thinking roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Woo-hoo. All right, there's still other items.
Item number 35, referral 24-0263, confirming appointment to Monroe Community College Board of Trustees.
Moved by legislator Burgess, second by legislator Baines. And are you,
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
legislator Baines was the seconder. Are you seconding this, legislator Vasquez-Sanz? A motion to table is on the floor. Is there a second? Seconded by legislator Barnhart. All in favor? Those
Aye.
that oppose?
Do a roll call vote.
We do a, that is what I heard the motion to be.
We do a roll call vote.
Roll call vote to table.
Roll call vote.
A roll call vote to table. To table the current referral.
This is to table, not, I was confused by what you said. A motion to table. Okay, motion to table. Roll call vote on the motion to table. Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson votes no. Mr. Brew. Mr. Brew votes no. Ms. Barnhart. Barnhart votes yes. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy.
No.
Ms. Bartholomew McCoy votes no. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines votes no. Mr. Blankley. Mr. Blankley votes no. Ms. Bonnick. Bonnick votes no. Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess votes no. Mr. Chardy. Mr. Chardy votes no. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby votes no. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz votes no. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman votes no. Mrs. DeFlorio. Mrs. DeFlorio votes no. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer votes no. Mr. Frazier.
No.
Mr. Frazier votes no. Ms. Hasman.
No.
Ms. Hasman votes no. Ms. Hugh Smith. Ms. Hugh Smith votes no. Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns votes no. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller votes no. Mr. Long. Mr. Long votes no. Mr. Mafucci. Mr. Mafucci votes no. Mr. McCabe.
Nation?
Not during the vote. Yeah, not during the vote.
This is a motion to table. Yes or no?
Yes.
McCabe votes yes. Ms. McIntyre. Ms. McIntyre votes no. Mr. Milne. Milne votes no. Mr. Morris. Morris votes no. Mr. Sinclair. Mr. Sinclair votes no. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith votes no. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons votes yes. President Roman.
No.
President Roman votes no. 3 to 26. Motion to table fails.
Thank you. We are back to the appointment and the original motion. All in favor?
Aye.
I just want to explain my vote.
Any discussion? Yes.
Thank you. like to explain my vote. The recommended appointee is highly qualified, and as far as I know, the recommended appointee has integrity. Not overly concerned about either of those things. I'm concerned because of the individual's service in the community is so extensive. There are many conflicts related to her employment and multiple board service. Legitimate concerns about these conflicts have been dismissed as character attacks and have not been adequately addressed. Yet any layperson can look at the set of facts that was presented to this legislature and understand there are questions. In fact, many have. By not addressing these concerns in a thoughtful manner and not in a rushed manner, we risk trust in our institutions. I wish her well in this appointment, but will be seeking an ethics review of the facts presented to the legislature about the appointment from the appointed bodies, and I will be voting no.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. Roll call vote. Do a roll call vote.
Roll call vote on the main motion. Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson votes yes. Mr. Brew. Mr. Brew votes yes. Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart votes no. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy.
Yes.
Ms. Bartholomew McCoy votes yes. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines votes yes. Mr. Blankley. Mr. Blankley votes yes. Ms. Bonnick. Ms. Bonnick votes yes. Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess votes yes. Mr. Chardy. Mr. Chardy votes yes. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby votes yes. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz votes yes. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman votes yes. Mrs. DeFlorio. Mrs. DeFlorio votes yes. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Mr. Frazier.
Yes.
Mr. Frazier votes yes. Ms. Hasman.
Yes.
Ms. Hasman votes yes. Ms. Hughes Smith. Ms. Hughes Smith votes yes. Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns votes yes. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller votes yes. Mr. Long. Mr. Long votes yes. Mr. Mafucci. Mr. Mafucci votes yes. Mr. McCabe. Mr. McCabe votes no. Ms. McIntyre. Ms. McIntyre votes yes. Mr. Milne. Mr. Milne votes yes. Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris votes yes. Mr. Sinclair. Mr. Sinclair votes yes. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith votes yes. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons votes no. President Roman.
Yes.
President Roman votes yes. 26-3, resolution passes.
Okay. Thank you.
Item number 36, referral 24-0279, authorizing acceptance and payment of healthcare and mental hygiene worker bonuses to Monroe County employees and amendment of contracts to pay healthcare and mental hygiene worker bonuses to Monroe County contractors.
Move it.
Moved by Legislator Hasman, seconded by Legislator Mafucci. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 37, referral 24-0280, confirming appointment to the Monroe County Environmental Management Council.
Moved by Legislator Udelson, second by Legislator Burgess. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item. Yep, there being no unfinished business.
Madam President, I move that we stand adjourned until 6 p.m. on Tuesday, September 10th, 2024.
All right. Meeting adjourned.